I found the letter tucked inside my mother's jewelry box 3 hours after we buried her. It was addressed to me, dated 20 years ago. The first line read, "Sarah, your father didn't die in that accident. I killed him. Everything I knew was a lie." Please subscribe and like my 10 p.m. stories, one story every night. It truly helps these tales touch more hearts. Share where you're listening from in the comments. Seeing our growing family from around the world always brings me joy. Now let the story unfold. The funeral was small. Mom had outlived most of her friends, and I was her only child. 23 people in folding chairs, a minister who'd never met her reading generic condolences, and me in the front row wearing the black dress she'd helped me pick out 5 years ago for another funeral. She'd been 71, cancer. We'd had 6 months to say goodbye, which sounds like a gift until you realize 6 months isn't nearly enough to summarize a lifetime. Back at her house, my childhood home, I moved through rooms that smelled like lavender and old books. My husband, Marcus, had offered to come, but I'd said no. This felt like something I needed to do alone. I started in her bedroom. The jewelry box sat on her dresser, the same mahogany box she'd had since I was a child. I remembered playing with her costume jewelry as a little girl, draping myself in fake pearls and clip-on earrings, pretending to be a princess. I opened it, the familiar tray of tangled necklaces. Underneath, in the lower compartment, her wedding ring, the one from my father. She'd never worn it after he died, but she'd never thrown it away either. That's when I saw the envelope, cream-colored, tucked beneath the ring, my name written in her careful script across the front. My hands trembled as I pulled it out. I sat on the edge of her bed, the envelope in my lap. It was sealed, the adhesive yellowed with age. The paper felt fragile, like it might disintegrate if I wasn't careful. I slid my finger under the flap. It tore easily. Inside was a single sheet of paper folded twice. I unfolded it slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs. The date at the top, March 15th, 2004. 20 years ago. I would have been 23 then, fresh out of college, just starting my first teaching job. "Sarah," it began, "your father didn't die in that accident. I killed him." I read it 3 times. The words didn't change. My father, James Mitchell, had died when I was 3 years old. A car accident on Highway 40, late at night. He'd been driving home from work. A truck driver fell asleep at the wheel, crossed the median, hit him head on. That's what Mom had always told me. She'd shown me the newspaper clipping. I'd seen his grave. I'd visited it every year on his birthday, left flowers, told him about my life, my graduation, my wedding, the grandchildren he'd never meet. But this letter said something different. This letter said my mother was a murderer. I couldn't breathe. The room felt too small, the air too thick. What had she done? I forced myself to keep reading. "I need you to know the truth. Even though writing this might destroy everything you believe about me. I'm writing this now because I've been diagnosed, and the doctors say I might not have much time, but I can't leave this world without you knowing what really happened that night in 1983. 1983, the year my father died. My mother had never been diagnosed with anything serious in 2004. She'd lived another 20 years in relatively good health until the cancer came last year. She must have written this during a scare, something she never told me about. Your father wasn't the man you think he was, Sarah. I know that's hard to hear. I spent your entire childhood building him into a hero in your mind because I thought that's what you needed, a father you could be proud of, even if you'd never really known him. I felt sick. My hands shook so badly the paper rattled. But James was dangerous, not to strangers, to us, to you. By the time you were 2 years old, I'd lost count of the bruises I'd hidden,
the excuses I'd made to neighbors about my black eyes and split lips. No, that couldn't be right. My father was... But what did I actually know about my father? Only what Mom had told me. The letter was just beginning to explain, and I was already falling apart.
The first time he hit me was 3 months after we got married, the letter continued. He'd been drinking. He always drank too much, and I'd made dinner late. He slapped me across the face so hard I saw stars. Then he cried and apologized and swore it would never happen again. I set the letter down. My stomach churned. I thought I might vomit. I'd spent my entire life idolizing a man who'd beaten my mother. It happened again and again. I learned what triggered him: alcohol, stress, anything that made him feel small or powerless. I learned to walk on eggshells, to keep the house perfect, to never disagree with him in public. I learned to lie to my parents, my friends, anyone who asked about the bruises. Tears blurred my vision. I wiped them away roughly. When I got pregnant with you, I thought it might change him. It didn't. It got worse. He was jealous of you, Sarah. Jealous of the attention I gave you, the love. When you were 6 months old, he shook you so hard because you wouldn't stop crying that I thought you might die. I took you to the emergency room and lied to the doctors, said you'd fallen from your crib. I pressed my hand to my mouth. I had no memory of this, of course. I'd been a baby. But somewhere in my body, did I carry that trauma? Did some part of me remember my father's violence? The letter was destroying everything. I tried to leave him twice. The first time, I packed a bag while he was at work, took you to my sister's house in Ohio. He found us in 3 days, dragged me back, beat me so badly I couldn't walk for a week, told me if I ever tried to leave again, he'd kill me and take you somewhere I'd never find you. I'd never known my mother had a sister. She'd always told me she was an only child. Another lie, another piece of my history rewritten. The second time, I went to a women's shelter. They helped me file a restraining order. James violated it the same day it was served. He broke into the shelter at 2 a.m., found me in the common room. If the security guard hadn't intervened, I don't know if I'd be here to write this. My mother had lived through hell, and I'd never known. After that, I realized the truth. I couldn't escape him legally. He was too smart, too connected. He worked for the city, knew judges and lawyers, had friends in the police department. The system wouldn't protect me, and he'd made it clear he would kill me before he'd let me go. My chest felt hollow, empty. So I decided to kill him first. There it was, the confession, cold, clear, deliberate. My mother, the woman who'd taught me to be kind, to forgive, to turn the other cheek, had committed murder, and somehow she'd made it look like an accident. It took me 6 months to plan. I couldn't leave evidence. I couldn't give the police any reason to suspect me. I had to make it look natural, or at least accidental. I didn't want to keep reading, but I couldn't stop. James drank heavily every Friday night. It was his ritual: stop at Murphy's bar on the way home from work, get blackout drunk, stumble home around midnight. I knew his route. I knew the dangerous curves on Highway 40, the spots where cars went off the road in bad weather. Oh God, she'd planned it meticulously. On March 12, 1983, I waited until you were asleep. I drove to the bar and watched him through the window. He was already drunk, barely able to stand. I waited until he left, then I followed him. My hands trembled so badly I almost dropped the letter. He was driving erratically, swerving across lanes. I stayed back, waiting for the right moment. At mile marker 47, there's a sharp curve with no guardrail. The shoulder drops off into a ravine. People have died there before. I knew that curve. I'd driven past it 1,000 times. I accelerated, pulled up beside him. He didn't even see me.
too drunk to notice. Then I swerved into his lane, forced him off the road. His car went over the embankment. I heard the crash, metal and glass, and then silence. I was going to be sick. The room spun around me, and I realized I was holding my breath. I drove home, washed my car to remove any paint transfer, went to bed. At 4 a.m., the police knocked on the door to tell me my husband was dead. I cried the way a widow should cry. I played the part perfectly. I felt like I was reading about a stranger, not my mother. The police investigated. They found his blood alcohol level was 3 times the legal limit. They found tire marks consistent with him losing control on the curve. They found no evidence of another vehicle. It was ruled an accident. Drunk driver, lost control, tragic but preventable. She'd gotten away with it. I told everyone, including you eventually, that he'd been a good man, a hero. I built him into someone worth mourning because I thought that's what you needed. I thought if you knew the truth, it would damage you. I thought I was protecting you. Was she? Or was she protecting herself? But Sarah, here's what I need you to understand. I'm not sorry. Not for killing him, not for lying to you. He would have killed one of us eventually, probably me, maybe you. I did what I had to do to keep us safe. The law wouldn't help me. Society wouldn't help me. So I helped myself. I set the letter down and stood up, pacing the room. My heart was racing. My mind was spinning. My mother was a murderer. She'd killed my father and lied about it for 40 years. But he'd been a monster. He'd beaten her. He'd hurt me. Did that make it right?
I picked up the letter again. There was more. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to understand, but I need you to know that everything I did after that night, every sacrifice, every choice, I did for you. I worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. I put you through college. I was there for every milestone, every heartbreak, every triumph. That was true. She had been. She'd been an incredible mother, loving, present, supportive. The guilt has lived with me every day, not guilt for killing James. I stand by that decision, but guilt for lying to you, for letting you love a man who didn't deserve your love, for building your entire childhood on a foundation of lies. Tears streamed down my face. I wasn't sure if I was crying for her, for my father, or for myself. If you're reading this, I'm probably gone. I don't know if I'll ever have the courage to give this to you while I'm alive. Maybe it's cowardice, leaving you to discover this after I can't answer your questions. Or maybe it's mercy, letting me leave this world without seeing the horror in your eyes when you learn what I really am. I wanted to scream. I wanted to go back in time and shake her, demand answers, make her explain herself while she was still here. But she was gone, buried 3 hours ago. This letter was all I'd ever get. I'm leaving you something else, Sarah. In the bottom of the jewelry box, underneath the velvet lining, there's a compartment. Open it. I looked down at the jewelry box on the dresser. My hands shook as I lifted it, carried it to the bed. I pulled out the trays, the loose jewelry. At the bottom was a velvet lining, just as she'd described. I felt along the edges until I found a small indentation. I pulled, and the false bottom lifted. Underneath was a manila envelope. I opened it carefully. Inside were photographs, old ones, Polaroids from the early 80s. I pulled them out one by one. My mother's face, bruised and swollen, a black eye, a split lip, fingerprint bruises around her throat. More photos, a younger version of me, maybe 2 years old, with a bruise on my forehead, another of me with what looked like marks on my arms. Documentation, evidence of what my father had done. Evidence she'd kept hidden for 40 years. At the bottom of the envelope was a small notebook. I opened it. Inside were dated entries, written in my mother's handwriting, a record of every beating, every threat, every injury. November 3rd, 1982,
James came home drunk. I didn't have dinner ready. He punched me in the stomach, called me useless. January 17th, 1983. Sarah was crying. James grabbed her from the crib, shook her. I screamed at him to stop. He hit me so hard I blacked out. Page after page of horror. She'd kept this evidence, but she never used it. Why?
I returned to the letter. I kept those records because I thought someday I might need them to prove what he was, to justify what I'd eventually do. But after he died, I couldn't bring myself to destroy them. They were proof that I wasn't crazy, that the monster was real, that I hadn't imagined his cruelty. I understood that. Victims of abuse often kept evidence, needing validation that their trauma had been real. I'm showing you this now because I need you to see what I saw. I need you to understand why I did what I did. James Mitchell was not a good man. He was not a hero. He was a violent, dangerous abuser who would have destroyed both of us if I'd let him live. She was right. The evidence was overwhelming. My father had been a monster. But did that make murder justified? I know what the law says. I know what society says about women like me, that I should have left, should have kept trying, should have found another way. But I tried everything. The system failed me, and I refuse to feel guilty for surviving. I sat down hard on the bed, the photographs scattered around me. The notebook lay open on my lap. I thought about my own life, my marriage to Marcus, built on respect, kindness, safety. I'd never feared him, never hidden bruises, never lied to doctors about injuries, because my mother had removed the monster who might have taught me that abuse was normal, who might have made me believe violence was love. She'd saved me, and maybe, in doing so, she'd saved generations of women in our family from repeating the cycle. The letter had one final paragraph. Sarah, you have a choice now. You can take this evidence to the police. You can tell them what I did. I'm sure the case could still be prosecuted, even after all these years. Murder has no statute of limitations. I'd be remembered as a killer, and everything we built would be tainted by that truth. My breath caught. She was leaving the decision to me. Or you can destroy this letter, burn the evidence, and let the lie stand. Let me stay dead as the woman you believed I was, the strong, loving mother who raised you alone after tragedy. Let your father stay dead as the hero I invented. Keep the illusion intact. She was asking me to be complicit in covering up a murder. I don't know what you'll choose. I don't even know if I have the right to ask this of you, but I'm asking anyway. Let me keep my secret. I've carried the weight of it for 40 years. Don't let it become your burden, too. The letter ended there, just her signature at the bottom, Mom. I sat in her bedroom until the sun set. Marcus called twice. I didn't answer. I thought about justice, about morality, about the difference between legal right and human right. My father had been a monster. My mother had killed him. The law said that was wrong. But was it? I thought about all the women trapped in abusive relationships, all the ones who tried to leave and ended up dead, all the ones the system failed. My mother had survived, and in surviving, she'd given me a life free from violence, free from fear. Wasn't that worth something? I gathered everything. The letter, the photographs, the notebook, the envelope. I carried them downstairs to the fireplace. My mother had loved sitting by this fire in winter, reading books, drinking tea. I knelt on the hearth, struck a match. The flame wavered in my hand. I could still change my mind. I could still call the police, turn over the evidence, let the truth destroy everything. But what would that accomplish? My mother was dead. My father was dead. Justice, if it had ever been possible, was 40 years too late. I touched the flame to the corner of the letter. It caught immediately, the old paper igniting like kindling. I watched my mother's words turn to ash. Your father didn't die in that accident. I killed him. The photographs went next. The Polaroids curled and blackened, my mother's bruised face disappearing into smoke. Then the notebook.
page after page of documented abuse burning away. Within minutes, it was gone, all of it, the evidence, the confession, the truth. Only I knew now. Only I would carry this secret. I sat on the floor, watching the flames die down to embers, and I made peace with my choice. My mother had killed to protect us. I was lying to protect her memory. Maybe that made me complicit. Maybe that made me a criminal too. But I could live with that. That was 2 years ago. I'm sitting in my mother's house again. My house now. Marcus knows something happened that day, but he's never pushed me to explain. Some secrets are meant to be kept. I visit 2 graves now, my mother's and my father's. I bring flowers to hers, tell her about my life, about her grandchildren growing up. At my father's grave, I stand in silence. I don't know what to feel about him anymore. Anger, pity, relief that he's gone? Maybe all 3. I think about my mother often, the woman who raised me with such love and patience, the woman who read me bedtime stories and taught me to ride a bike and held me when I cried over my first heartbreak, and the woman who planned and executed a murder with cold precision. Both women were real. Both existed in the same person. People aren't simple. They're not heroes or villains. They're complicated, contradictory, capable of both tremendous love and terrible violence. My mother did what she thought she had to do, and I did what I thought I had to do. The truth is buried now, literally and figuratively. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if I made the right choice. But then I think about the alternative. My mother's memory destroyed, our family name tainted, my children asking questions I could never adequately answer. Some truths are too heavy to carry into the light. Some lies are kinder than the reality they conceal. I choose to remember my mother as she wanted to be remembered, as the woman who loved me, who sacrificed for me, who gave me everything. And if that makes me a liar too, I can live with that. They say the truth will set you free, but sometimes the truth is a prison of its own. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do for the people we love is let them keep their secrets even after they're gone. Some stories are better left buried. This was one of them. If this story touched you, stay with me for the next one. Subscribe, like, share it with someone who would feel it, and leave your thoughts in the comments. My 10 p.m. stories. One story every night at 10 p.m.